The destroyer USS Hadley was attacked by a series of kamikaze attacks off Okinawa on May 11, 1945, but managed to escape destruction. During World War II, the ultimate goal of the American military push across the Pacific, aside from an invasion of Japan, was Okinawa, located in the Ryukyu Islands just 340 miles from the home island of Kyushu. On April 1, 1945, ironically April Fool's Day and Easter Sunday, American troops unexpectedly landed on Okinawa. If the island was taken, it would serve as a base for the anticipated American invasion of Japan, an airstrip for American aircraft, and an operational base for American ships. The battle for Okinawa was the bloodiest conflict in the Pacific, a protracted and terrible struggle. The land combat cost the Americans about 39,000 soldiers, including those killed, wounded, or missing. The island was not proclaimed secure until the end of June. The Japanese sustained horrific losses, with 110,000 killed and about 11,000 taken prisoner. American Marines and Army troops relied on U.S. warships and supply vessels throughout the 83-day battle. The Navy, gathered offshore, enabled the Americans to conduct the lengthy land campaign, thanks to the naval lifeline. However, the longer the ships remained anchored or on patrol off Okinawa, the more they were exposed to Japanese airstrikes, especially the new and horrifying kamikaze attacks. Vice Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner, commander of U.S. amphibious forces in the Pacific, created an early warning system against mass Japanese airstrikes, knowing the Japanese would fervently defend Okinawa by land, sea, and air. Turner ordered the establishment of 16 radar picket stations around Okinawa, including along the most likely paths an enemy would use. By setting up pickets, Turner believed surface ships would have more time to prepare their anti-aircraft batteries for defense, and fighter aircraft would have more time to maneuver against incoming Japanese aircraft. The makeup of the radar picket stations changed periodically but consistently included 1 or 2 U.S. Navy destroyers, perhaps escorting a destroyer, numerous smaller support craft, and personnel tasked with maintaining continual watch on radar screens. The picket ship's job was to fire on Japanese aircraft to prevent them from reaching high-value targets like battleships, aircraft carriers, or vulnerable supply vessels off the coast of Okinawa. Destroyers with fighter direction capabilities were in charge of the combat air patrol, CAP, in the air. The Japanese had to put in their utmost effort to defend Okinawa. It was a do-or-die situation, and one's honor was greatly enhanced by a valiant death in combat. The ancient Bushido Code, often known as the Way of the Warrior, which required honor, loyalty, deference to authority, and readiness to die for the emperor, was ingrained in young Japanese men. This code, closely linked to the samurai warrior class, encouraged Japanese soldiers, sailors, and airmen to never give up and to sacrifice themselves in combat if needed. Hundreds of young men were recruited as suicide pilots to crash their bomb-laden planes into American ships and do as much damage as possible. Known as kamikazes, or divine wind, these pilots were named after the powerful typhoons that decimated Kublai Khan's Mongol forces attempting to invade Japan in 1274 and 1281. For the defense of Okinawa, every available aircraft, some long obsolete, was enlisted. Many pilots received only basic instruction. Vice Admiral Mitomo Ugaki's Japanese Fifth Air Fleet was ready to fight to the death to protect Okinawa. By the spring of 1945, their strategy was simple. Massive kamikaze assaults would hit the American fleet off the island, causing such severe casualties that the invaders would be unable to continue the ground campaign and would have to retreat. Up to 4,500 aircraft were to be utilized in the operation, with 10 mass kamikaze sorties called kikusu, or floating chrysanthemums, as part of 10-go, or heavenly operation. Each kikusui might include up to 350 planes, comprising fighters, bombers, vintage fixed-gear aircraft, and even a few biplanes. One terrifying airborne suicide weapon used against the Americans was the Ohka, or cherry blossom, a flying bomb carrying almost 2,600 pounds of explosives. Launched after being slung beneath a bomber, the Ohka was maneuvered near the American fleet's combat zone, Determined to hit the adversary, the pilot would fire 3 solid fuel rockets and race at up to 650 miles per hour towards the target. The Ohka was known to American pilots and sailors as baka, which means idiot or loon in Japanese. Kamikaze pilots often participated in rites and ceremonies before their last flights, raising a glass of sake to each other and donning the customary hachimaki headband before boarding their aircraft to meet their death. Many left behind hair strands, fingernails, or even a severed little finger for enshrinement. Using both Army and Navy planes, Ugaki assembled the majority of them in airstrips in the southern region of Kyushu. However, he was unable to react in force when the Americans landed on Okinawa on April 1. Despite a few sorties, Kikusuino 1 was not launched until April 6 due to American bombardment, fuel shortages, and other supply issues. From that point on, the Americans were subjected to the ferocity of the kamikazes, finding it difficult to accept that men fighting for their lives were actually protecting themselves against an adversary whose goal was to perish and do as much harm as possible. Approximately 1,500 Japanese suicide pilots lost their lives attacking American ships during the Okinawa campaign. The Americans suffered 3,048 sailors killed and 6,035 wounded, with 29 U.S. Navy vessels sunk and 120 more damaged. The American sailors endured constant pressure, both physically and psychologically. One sailor, after an especially nasty kamikaze attack, simply got up from his gun position, said, "It's hot today," and leaped over his ship's side, disappearing forever. Kamikaze pilots frequently attempted to crash into the first American warship they spotted. The destroyers and other patrol craft of the picket line bore the brunt of Operation Tengo. Despite some major warships, including several carriers and battleships, being struck by kamikazes off Okinawa, the sailors on these smaller warships displayed incredible bravery. They fought valiantly, held the line, and authored one of the most compelling chapters in naval warfare history. Among the many tales of bravery on the picket line, the story of the USS Hadley, a Fletcher-class destroyer, is particularly remarkable and a powerful representation of the brutal battle that occurred off the coast of Okinawa. The morning of May 11, 1945, at Radar Picket Station 15 in the East China Sea, 60 miles north of Point Bolo, on the east coast of Okinawa, marked the pinnacle of the USS Hadley's short and bloody career. Constructed in the shipyards of Bethlehem Steel Company at Terminal Island, California, the 2,200-ton Hadley was named for a Navy lieutenant killed in action in the Solomons in August 1942. Commander L.C. Chamberlain took command when she was commissioned in November 1944 after her keel was laid in February, and she was launched 5 months later. With a length of 376 feet 6 inches and a beam of 40 feet 10 inches, the Hadley was propelled by 4 boilers producing 60,000 horsepower, powering turbines that rotated twin propeller shafts. She was armed with 6 5-inch cannons, mounted in 3 turrets, 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, 12 40mm guns, 11 20mm anti-aircraft guns, 6 depth-charge projectors, and 2 depth-charge tracks. The ship had a complement of 336 officers and sailors. Commander Baron J. Mullen assumed command on January 13, 1945, and the newly built destroyer sailed to Pearl Harbor at the end of February. On March 7, the Hadley set out for Ulithi, accompanied by the escort carrier USS Santee. By March 31, the islands encircling Okinawa were visible. The Hadley's guns fired in anger for the first time, shooting down a Japanese Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber. After escort missions and anti-submarine patrols, the Hadley was set to radar picket duty by mid-April. On May 10, the destroyer was positioned at Radar Picket Station 15, accompanied by LCS L-82, LCS L-83, LCS O-84, and LSM R-193. The Fletcher-class destroyer USS Evans, under Commander R.G. Archer, was also present. American sailors grimmly referred to the smaller ships accompanying the destroyers on the picket line as pallbearers. On May 11, 1945, there was an unnerving calm near Radar Picket Station 15, but everyone in the small flotilla knew that the kamikaze tempest would eventually burst. At 6:36 a.m., the Combat Air Patrol (CAP) of 12 Corsair fighters identified a solitary Japanese aircraft. At 7:45, a Japanese float plane was sighted, and the Hadley went to general quarters. Young officer Doug Atkin, who would later become a captain in the Navy, recalled seeing a Japanese float plane flying very low. The Hadley brought it down near the ship. As the sun rose higher, the destroyer Shi, just 1,000 yards off Hadley's port quarter, was hit by an Ohka suicide plane. The Hadley, lacking fighter direction equipment, managed the CAP as best it could until relieved a few hours later. The day saw a massive kamikaze attack by over 150 enemy aircraft, including conventional bombers, fighters, and the fearsome Ohkas. About 40 enemy planes were eliminated by the dozen Corsairs of the CAP, but many broke through. The Hadley and Evans were separated by 1.5 miles and faced relentless attacks. The Hadley's gunners brought down 4 Japanese planes within the first few minutes of battle, but the relentless attacks continued. By 9:00 a.m., the Evans, 3 miles away from the Hadley, faced its own tragic events. The Evans doctor, Lieutenant James M. Smith, described seeing whirlwinds of planes attacking from every direction. The Evans was hit by multiple kamikaze planes, causing severe damage. The sailors on both the Hadley and Evans displayed incredible bravery in the face of overwhelming odds, exemplifying the brutal battle that occurred off the coast of Okinawa. As the kamikaze planes continued their relentless attacks, the Hadley and her crew fought valiantly, downing many enemy aircraft, but suffering significant damage. The battle off Okinawa was one of the most intense and deadly naval engagements of World War II, and the actions of the Hadley and her crew remain a testament to their courage and determination in the face of adversity. As a result of the second and third hits at the portside waterline, a Japanese Army Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar fighter was hit. The burning aircraft smashed into the fantail, and its device detonated beneath the engineering spaces, instantly inundating them. The U.S. Evans sank dead in the sea after losing all power. When her executive officer was blown overboard, a vigilant seaman leaped to his aid. The Evans was out of the fight, but the outstanding efforts of the damage control parties prevented the ship from sinking. Towed by the fleet tug USS Cree in the afternoon, the damaged destroyer arrived at Karamoreto for temporary repairs. The Evans was later towed to Saipan, then Pearl Harbor, and finally to the Mare Island Naval Shipyard in San Francisco for extensive repairs. On May 11, 32 crew members of the Evans were killed and 27 injured in action, yet the ship managed to survive. The USS Hadley kept fighting, with her small support ships offering their utmost assistance. The lone 5-inch gun on board LSM R-193 was fired as quickly as possible, shaking the little vessel like a rag doll with each shot. Corsairs swooped and endured friendly fire from below to repel the kamikazes. Despite overwhelming odds, the Hadley fought off the enemy single-handedly for 20 minutes, separated from the Evans by 3 miles and from the 4 small support ships by 2 miles. The Hadley faced relentless attacks. Commander Mullaney later stated that at 9:20 a.m., 10 kamikazes surrounded the Hadley and assaulted the ship simultaneously. 4 approached from the starboard bow, under fire from the main battery machine guns, 4 from the port bow from the forward machine guns, and 2 from aft machine guns. In an incredible battle, all 10 planes were destroyed. Although eyewitness testimonies differ, it is generally acknowledged that the Hadley was struck by 3 kamikazes and 1 550-pound bomb during a fierce 4 minutes of battle. The first kamikaze hit the afterport quad 40mm mount, killing the gun crew instantly. The ship was lifted out of the water as multiple explosives detonated under the keel. Another aircraft slammed into the starboard side near the waterline, causing serious flooding and loss of life. A third kamikaze dove into the ship, severing a few wires before falling into the water without incident. The Hadley suffered 3 significant hits. The second exposed almost all engineering areas to the sea at the waterline. The 550-pound bomb detonated beneath the ship, humping the bottom almost 5 feet like a depth charge explosion. Shortly after, a kamikaze struck the quad 40mm gun location on the after-deck house, causing catastrophic damage. Commander Mullaney's report stated that the damage was terrible. The destroyer erupted in flames and smoke, and many sailors were hurt or killed. Despite being badly holed, with both engine rooms and one fire room flooded, the crew fought valiantly to save the ship. The chief engineer and the damage control officer reported that the main spaces were inundated. Mullaney ordered the crew to raise all American flags and any other available colors. Life rafts and flotation devices were lowered over the side, and the remaining crew members and injured were thrown into the ocean. The story of the 50 fearless men on board the Hadley came to life when those in the water were rescued by other ships. Unexploded bombs and torpedoes were tossed over the edge, and for 15 minutes, hoses were played over the flames to combat the list. Weight was moved from starboard to port, and once the fire was contained and the flooding halted, the destroyer USS Wadsworth, auxiliary fleet tug ATR 114, and fast transport USF Barber approached to offer support. Around noon, LSM on-193 and LCS L-83 started towing the Hadley to the temporary anchorage at Ishima, while LCS L-82 and LCS L-84 tended to the severely damaged Evans. The USS Hadley is credited with downing 23 Japanese aircraft during the May 11 picket line battle, setting a U.S. Navy record for most enemy planes destroyed in one action. The Hadley fired 81 rounds of 5-inch ammunition, 8,950 rounds of 40 millimeters, 5,990 rounds of 20 millimeters, and 801 smokeless gunpowder charges. Miraculously, the Hadley survived her arduous ordeal. Of her crew, 28 perished in action, 68 were injured, and 2 more eventually succumbed to their wounds. The destroyer was later taken to Caramaretto for short-term repairs. Steel I-beams were welded to its interior, and steel plating was used to repair the hull's exterior. In July, the tug ATA 199 towed the Hadley to Butler Bay, Okinawa, and then on a 7,000-mile journey, a Hunters Point naval shipyard near San Francisco, making stops at Pearl Harbor, Saipan, and Eniwetok. The journey, completed at an average speed of 7 knots, was fraught with challenges, including 9 tow line separations and the evasion of a typhoon. The Hadley was decommissioned on November 7, 1945, and struck from the Navy Register on November 28, 1945. Less than 2 years after her commissioning, the valiant Hadley was sold for scrap on February 11, 1947. For their roles in the picket line combat, Commander Mullaney and Lieutenant Patrick H. McAndrews, the Hadley's gunnery officer, were awarded the Navy Cross, while 7 other crewmen received the Silver Star and 7 more the Bronze Star. Nearly 100 Purple Hearts were awarded, and each crew member received a Presidential Unit Citation. Commander Mullaney, in summarizing the extraordinary work of his crew, stated that never had a captain of a man-of-war had a crew who fought more valiantly against such overwhelming odds. The crew's bravery and determination to keep the ship afloat in the face of plunging planes aiming to destroy them were remarkable. Mullaney's words stand as a testament to the indomitable spirit of the Hadley's crew and their exceptional service to their country. The saga of the USS Hadley and her crew is a testament to the extraordinary bravery and resilience of the men who served aboard this valiant destroyer. In the face of relentless and overwhelming kamikaze attacks, the crew's determination and valor were unparalleled. Their efforts not only saved the ship from sinking but also set a remarkable record for downing enemy planes in a single action. Despite the severe damage and loss of life, the Hadley's crew fought on, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to their ship and to each other. Their heroism was recognized with numerous awards, including the Navy Cross, Silver Star, Bronze Star, and nearly 100 Purple Hearts. The Presidential Unit Citation awarded to the entire crew underscored their collective bravery and dedication. The Hadley's story is more than just a tale of battle. It is a narrative of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable spirit of those who served aboard her. As Commander Mullaney eloquently stated, the actions of the Hadley's crew on May 11, 1945 significantly enhanced the history of the U.S. Navy. Their legacy serves as a poignant reminder of the extraordinary heroism exhibited by service members in the most trying of circumstances. Though the USS Hadley was eventually decommissioned and sold for scrap, the memory of her service and the valor of her crew endure. They exemplified the finest traditions of naval service, fighting valiantly against overwhelming odds and refusing to surrender even when all seemed lost. The story of the Hadley and her crew is a powerful tribute to the indomitable spirit of those who serve, and it remains a shining example of courage and resilience in the annals of naval history.